The following is a Zoom interview between Liberty University Rawlings School of Divinity student Jerrold Hinton and United States Senate Chaplain Reverend Dr. Barry C. Black. This interview was conducted by a pre-recorded Zoom experience due to COVID-19 precautions and security concerns at the United States Capitol building. Arrangements were made with the Senate Office of the Chaplain by providing Senate Chaplain Black's Executive Assistant, Chaplain Reverend Dr. Jody M. Bogusevich, the course written questions in advance, in addition to the students' 5 drawn-up questions. This interview was conducted on Thursday, September the 30th, 2021. First of all, I want to thank you, Chaplain Black, for agreeing to participate in this Zoom with me. I want you to know that I'm very honored because I've heard you in person preach a sermon. I've seen you preach the sermon, and my being the seniors ministry spiritual advisor at the Shiloh Baptist Church, you have come several times to deliver the message for Seniors Day. So I really want to thank you and let you know that I appreciate you doing this. I have the questions that I have sent you. There's 15 questions. And the first question I want to ask is, why did you enter this particular chaplaincy discipline?
Hello, my name is Barry Black. I'm the 62nd Chaplain of the United States Senate, and Reverend Hinton from Liberty University has asked me to respond to some questions about my ministry. Question 1, why did you enter this particular chaplaincy discipline? Well, I'm involved in the legislative branch of chaplaincy, and I was invited by the United States Senate to interview for the job.
Okay, Chaplain Black, how long have you served as a chaplain within this chaplaincy discipline?
Question 2, how long have you served as a chaplain within this chaplaincy discipline? I have served as the chaplain of the United States Senate for 18 years.
Now, what preparation did you receive to qualify you for this chaplaincy discipline?
Question 3, what preparation did you receive to qualify you for this chaplaincy discipline? I think in most chaplaincy disciplines, you need at least a Master of Divinity degree or its equivalent. You also probably need some form of ordination or ecclesiastical endorsement from a denomination. In the legislative chaplaincy, however, you serve at the desires of the lawmakers, the senators and the members of the House of Representatives. And so you can actually have very little ministry background. But for the most part, I'd say get yourself a Master of Divinity degree or its equivalent if you're interested in chaplaincy.
Now I'm interested, what ministry opportunities are available to you in your particular chaplaincy discipline?
Question 4, what ministry opportunities are available to you in your particular chaplaincy discipline? Anything that a pastor would do: religious education, counseling, officiating at weddings and funerals, visiting members, various forms of training. Anything that a pastor can do, preaching, teaching, a chaplain in the kind of pluralistic environment I'm working in can also do.
What are the strengths of your ministry discipline compared with other types of ministry?
What are the strengths of your ministry compared with other types of ministry? The strength of my ministry in comparison to other types of ministry is I get an opportunity to have influence on members of the legislative branch. These are people who make our laws. These are people who can truly make a difference in the lives of the citizens of a nation.
What weaknesses do you perceive in your chaplaincy discipline?
6, what weakness do you perceive in your chaplaincy discipline? The primary weakness that I see in my chaplaincy discipline is the fact the environment is so polarized. You are dealing with at least two major parties, Democrats and Republicans. Each party has different presuppositions regarding how government best serves its citizens. And so that's a tremendous challenge to have to deal with, because it's like two opposing teams facing each other. So that to me is the primary weakness in legislative ministry. Having said that, there are numerous opportunities to get people from different parties together. We have a weekly prayer breakfast. We have a weekly Bible study just for the lawmakers, and bridges can be built. So you can make a strength even out of the polarization.
What are your greatest challenges serving as a chaplain within this discipline?
Question, what are your greatest challenges serving as a chaplain within this discipline? Aristotle said that there is a tripart of persuasion, ethos, in which you are ethically congruent and people perceive that what you teach, you also live. That to me is the greatest challenge in serving as a chaplain within this discipline, and that is to practice what you teach or preach. You must live your sermon. As Edgar Guest, the poet, said, I'd rather see your sermon than hear it any day.
What threats, concerns, or challenges, do you perceive for evangelical chaplains in your chaplaincy discipline?
Next question, what threats, concerns, or challenges do you perceive for evangelical chaplains in your chaplaincy ministry? Well, I think that the primary threat to legislative chaplaincy is the recurring challenges to its constitutionality. There are people who believe that a legislative chaplaincy is a breach of the Establishment Clause to the First Amendment of our Constitution, which states, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Fortunately, the establishment of the chaplaincy predates the Establishment Clause, and the day that the Establishment Clause was written, a chaplain convened the Senate with a prayer, and prayer has continued almost uninterrupted since then, since 1789. So it's obvious, as the Supreme Court has repeatedly agreed regarding, it's obvious that this is not a breach of the Establishment Clause, but that is one of the primary threats.
How effective do you perceive your ministry efforts are within your chaplaincy discipline?
So next question, how effective do you perceive your ministry efforts are within your chaplaincy discipline? I believe that we can always do better, but the feedback that I get from my chaplaincy ministry is extremely positive. So my perception of the efficacy of my ministry is we are doing quite well.
How has your ministry as a chaplain affected your personal and family life?
Next question, how has your ministry as a chaplain affected your personal and family life? Well, we are empty nesters. I have 3 sons, but they're adults. My wife loves legislative ministry. You have to dress up in black tie and go out to interesting places. And you have Bible studies and seminars, and Brenda enjoys that immensely. But then she served with me for 27 years in the military, which is a pluralistic ministry. So I probably would not have accepted the legislative opportunity if she was not enthusiastic about it.
Now, for my 5 questions, in your years serving as a chaplain, what wartime conflicts have you been involved with?
Next question, in your years serving as a chaplain, what wartime conflicts have you been involved with? In my years in the military, the 27 years that I've alluded to, I was involved in Desert Storm, Desert Shield, and I was also involved in Operation Iraqi Freedom.
As the senior Black Senate chaplain, describe an obstacle that comes to mind of which you were confronted with that may or may not have turned out the way it should have.
Next question, as the senior Senate chaplain, describe an obstacle that comes to mind of which you were confronted with that may or may not have turned out the way it should have. Now, I am the only Senate chaplain, and the obstacle that I think I had to deal with when I first came was there was no budget. And I had been serving as a military chaplain for 27 years with an annual budget. So that was an obstacle that I had to catapult, and fortunately I was able to do so.
And we're almost done. I got several more. Have you ever had to say no in regards to something you were asked to do as the Senate chaplain?
Next question, have you ever had to say no in regard to something you were asked to do as the Senate chaplain? I haven't had that situation. The reality, however, is that in most pluralistic chaplaincies, there is the notion of cooperation without compromise. And if a chaplain conscientiously objects to doing something, he or she would not be forced to do it.
Now, I came up with this question because it kind of pertains to me a little bit in the near future. Is it ever appropriate for a chaplain to retire from the ministry?
Next question, is it ever appropriate for a chaplain to retire from the ministry? I think in an official capacity, it is appropriate to retire. After all, I retired from the military. You can be forced to retire. But in terms of productivity and working, I think that you should continue, even if it's in an unofficial capacity. The 92nd Psalm, verse 14, speaking of senior citizens, that verse declares, they shall bear fruit in old age. So I believe that God expects us to be productive to the very end, as was Simeon, a very senior citizen, and Anna in the book of Luke.
Okay, now my last question. If you could change anything about the chaplaincy, what would it be?
Final question. If you could change anything about the chaplaincy, what would it be? I think that if I could change anything about the legislative chaplaincy, I would probably want to have a deputy. Even as in the military, when I was chief of chaplains, I had a deputy chief of chaplains. I think that one chaplain for essentially 6,000 to 7,000 people who make up the Senate side of Capitol Hill, the members, senators, the members of their families, the staffers, and all of the other people, Capitol Police officers, people who work in the restaurants and all of those. I think a deputy would be very, very appropriate. I hope that this is helpful, Reverend Hinton, and I wish you much success in your research project. May the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift the light of his countenance upon you and give you his shalom, give you his peace, now and always. Amen and amen.